Welcome to a New Human podcast. This show is a place where we find out who we truly are and what we strive to be. Listen as we unravel current history and make our way to a new beginning. I am your host, Justin Klein. We are at the New Human podcast today with Michelle Deutmeyer. Michelle is a newer friend that we just came in contact with about a year ago,
Yep, I think so.
from a mutual friend. And turns out we have some similar stories and kind of similar paths. And she's here to hopefully change some lives out there today. And I, without a doubt, do not question she is going to. How do you want to be remembered? And as far as a title goes for you and where we're going today, do you want to touch on what your title was, what you wanted to be remembered by?
Yeah, I think we were talking about even on a tombstone, what do you want to be remembered by? And for me, it's truly having an impact with people and creating ripples of positivity in life. Um, I think when we can be super superficial, looking at people, their positions, their money, their whatever, and say, "Oh wow, like they've got it made, they've got their life together, and the whole thing." And when you start to peel back the layers like an onion, you can find where people maybe have been through trauma, they have been through different challenges that they've had to overcome in their lives that creates who they are, that gives them the grit, that gives them, the determination to keep going. And in my case, it is to help other people that have come through it. I did a mentorship one time with a gentleman from California, and one of the things he always told me, and I'm sure you've probably heard it as well, Justin, is that you can help the person who you were 10 or 20 years ago. In my case, it's probably 20. In your case, it's probably 10.
Yeah.
But, those that are walking in the paths that you went through. And, I look at it where the valleys, we literally mapped out the peaks and valleys of my life. And it's in the valleys where you are created. And, yeah, so that was a visual way of looking at the challenges of your life and where it took you, maybe who you met, how you evolve. And, yeah, so that's where I want to go.
Changing lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So going into that, changing lives, before we get too far into that, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, how you got to where you're at right now.
Yeah. Well, I was raised on a farm outside of Petersburg, not terribly far from here.
Yeah.
I was the youngest of 12 kids. Yes, we were Catholic. Yes, we were farmers. I had an amazing parents. My dad was a great guy, and he served not only his family but the community. He had an impact in his church and the hospital, the schools, all the things. He had a perpetual positive attitude. People loved him. He could tell stories, never ending.
Yeah.
I can never remember the stories, but yeah, he was a great guy. He gave a very high model, tough model to follow, I think. But mom and dad had a great relationship. Loved each other. They raised their 12 kids, so they're you couldn't have asked for much more. I think growing up on the farm, you learn hard work, dedication, teamwork, working together. At the time when I grew up, you didn't get to run everywhere and do all the things that you do now, like the kids get in sports and all that. It wasn't until later. You were friends with your family, your neighbors, maybe cousins, that sort of thing. And it wasn't until probably later, mid high school, that you really got to move and do more in town and that.
Explore.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah,
And
you were
meet
kind of
people.
stuck there on the farm.
Kind of,
Yeah.
to some extent. It wasn't like we're, horse and buggy.
Yeah, we're not
Not
Amish.
that old, Justin. But yeah, it was more like that. You just didn't get to run all the time.
Right.
So from there, my goal, I always had like leadership aspirations. I think I remember, as a matter of fact, in fourth grade, I was identified to go to this leadership thing at Northeast Iowa Community College, even back then. So, in different tests that you take leadership always kind of bubbles to the top. So my aspiration was to be a lawyer. I didn't think that I would do like family law, that sort of thing, because I am an empath. I care about people very deeply, more like corporate law. So
Yeah.
I went to the University of Iowa and I was doing my thing, and that was my plan. And then a guy that I had kind of dated off and on in high school came back from the military, and we had a mutual friend at Iowa, and we reconnected, and one thing led to another, and we were madly in love. We kind of against all odds sort of thing. And this was the time before cell phones. He literally had to go stand outside at the payphone in the cold to talk to each other. And when we spent more on our phone bill than you would for rent, we figured, something needed to be done. But it was really life changing. As we were talking before,
Mhm.
when you plan success, and you and I are both planners,
Yeah.
control our life, goal setting. I am very goal driven. You envision a straight line to where you want to be. And being young, naive, you don't realize all the curves that are going to come your way. And so here was my curve, and his name was Scott. And so I was finishing my sophomore year at Iowa, and
For law.
yeah, that was eventually. I was in
Yeah.
accounting first, but then I
Okay.
was going to go back for law, for
Okay.
my
Yeah.
grad.
Mhm.
So we were dating all my junior year, and we got engaged, and I left school to move to Colorado after we got married, and that had not been on my plan. That wasn't on my dad's plan.
Did you finish college or no?
Yeah, I did. I
You
came
did?
back.
Okay.
He had 1 year left in the Army, so we went out to Colorado, and I was an Army wife. Um, learned a lot of things, met people. It was a different life. We
Scary?
Not really. It was an adventure,
Yeah.
and I will say that Scott and I vision us as rebels.
Mhm.
Rebels without a cause. Like he was could be a bad guy, a
Mhm.
trouble. I don't know. I shouldn't say bad guy. He was a stud wrestler and all these
Yeah.
things, but we were rebels.
Yeah, you had fun.
We had fun. We
Mhm.
wanted to live life.
Yeah.
And that's another theme really, that if you talk to people about me, they're like, she's always gone. She's always doing this,
Yeah.
that, always having fun and enjoying life. And I think we only get one trip around the sun,
Mhm.
and all these challenges that we're going to talk about reinforces that every day.
Yeah.
So Scott and I got married. Like I said, we did our year. He got out of the Army, and I did come back to Iowa. We moved back to Iowa, and I was able to finish in Iowa City, but I had an accounting degree. So we kind of went from there. We had a lot of ups and downs. Scott had, I will say, a troubled childhood. There was a lot of addictive personality traits and things like that. So there was a lot of ups and downs. One time we had separated shortly for a short time, but we came back together. And at one point, we decided that it would be best to move back closer to our families. And so, he was working with some of my family, and he was really the happiest he had probably ever been. And at that time, we found out that I was pregnant with our first child, and everything went through that. I've always been very sick, challenging pregnancies.
Not
So
fun.
not fun,
No.
very sick.
Mm.
But, we got too close to the end, and, again, still a lot of ups and downs, but, we knew we were gonna be parents, and I was super excited. We had the room ready and everything, and, I was dealt another major blow, major turn in the road. We had some challenges, with his drinking, which
Mhm.
I know you can relate to,
Yeah.
and had to get some of his family involved. And long story short, I came home one time, and he had taken his life in our home, and it was devastating. This was the man that I loved, my rebel without a cause,
Yeah.
and I was 8 months, 9 months pregnant with our son, and I went into labor
Mhm.
seeing him.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I found him.
Wow.
Yep. And so we went through that whole thing, I won't go into all the details,
Right.
but I had to go to the hospital. They tried to stop my labor. I made it 3 more weeks, but I was pretty sick. I was very toxemic. I had
Yeah.
ice packs on my feet at the funeral.
Mhm.
Had a very difficult time with his family. It, with suicide, again, as you know, there's a lot of blame
For
uh,
sure.
that goes around, especially initially. Um, it was one of the most difficult times of my life.
Mhm.
I remember my brother coming to the hospital and after I had had my son, and he said, "My God, you have been through 2 of the most difficult, challenging things in a lifetime within 3 weeks." I lost my husband and then I gave birth to my son. And I'll never forget when my son was born, my sisters were with me and friends and such. And I told my son that you will always know that you are loved.
Mhm.
And I try to be true to that today.
For sure. Man, there's a lot there that I kind of want to unpack a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of years you rattled off there, but so your husband committed suicide, and then you were the one that found him, and you were saying you went into labor
Mhm.
just because you were in shock, I take
Trauma.
it,
Yeah.
trauma. Um, man, I'm just trying to like let that one sink in there. So when you went to the doctor, obviously, did you have to stay there until you had your son?
No, I stayed, I think, overnight, and they got everything calmed down, and
Right,
I went
right.
home. I was home for a couple days, and then I went back to work. I had wanted to go back part-time, it wasn't gonna work out. So I went back to work for a while, but I had to keep my feet up and such because I was
Just your
swelling and all that
conditions, yep.
stuff going on until, I had, Dylan 3 weeks later.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know this motto or quote doesn't make anything easier, but I've noticed or witnessed a lot of life coming in of recently. We just had a child too, not too long ago, and we lost a mother not too long, before that. So when you're telling your story, I was just kept hearing life going out, but life coming in.
Mm.
And whether I don't know if you got to witness it when your son was born and when you seen him in that first cry or scream that they have, but if you got to see or bear witness, your husband through his eyes, through his scream, did that do anything for you or what were you feeling at that moment? Because I know a lot's going on.
Yeah. It was a difficult delivery, as well as pregnancy, but I think for me it was, I have this beautiful son, and as he grew, he to me he looks like his dad, or he has strong characteristics of his dad. He's built like me, but he looks like his dad.
Mhm.
Um, so, I just told him since he was little that I hoped that he had the best aspects of his dad
For sure.
because, you know, he was funny. He was, oh my God, just sarcastic, athletic, adventurous, all those things
Mhm.
that I hoped that my son would carry forward. And I really think that he did.
Mhm. That's good. I mean, I'm glad for you because your son, you're getting to see glimpses of him through your son's
Absolutely.
eyes. And even your
Absolutely.
son, I hope you remind your son of that. And I'm sure you do, just how much like you're bringing his dad's spirit alive by just being like him and acting like him.
Right.
But I couldn't imagine. I mean, I can a little bit what you went through, but just different territory. Suicide for anybody is nothing easy. There's death where most of us don't have the right words to say when a loved one is
For sure.
gone. but then there's suicide, and really you don't have words to say after that because you get blamed,
Mhm.
or whose fault was it? Was it just too much stress for him? And then people start looking at you differently, like, well, is she going to do it too, or is he going to do it too? Where all this judgment around
For
suicide,
sure.
and especially in today's world, I know that happened quite some time for you ago, but I feel like today suicide is on the rise, and my question for you is, I mean, if you could give, a short paragraph or maybe a few words for somebody that's going through it, that has those thoughts that, maybe don't think they're good enough,
Absolutely.
what would you say to them or what would you recommend doing?
I think one of the most common questions that you get is, "Did you have any signs? Did you know it was coming?"
Hmm.
Well, obviously, if you knew it was coming, you would stop it or do what you could to stop it.
Right.
And this is almost 34 years ago. And there was a period, it was a rough, I think, a rough economic time. And it was suicide was more prevalent happening.
Mm.
And we had a good friend of mine lost his brother. And I remember we specifically talked about it. Like it devastated their family. And why would you do this? Like we talked about it like you never would do that.
Mhm.
I couldn't ever do that. And so I don't you can't speculate. You can look. I remember my counselor said, I'm a numbers girl. You want to put the pieces of the puzzle together, but at some point you have to be able to accept what happened. And I know you and I visited a little bit before about religion comes into play.
Mm.
At the time, there was belief that Catholics or and others possibly as well, that if you commit suicide, you go to hell.
Mm.
Well, that's a really scary thing. Not only are you dealing with the emotion of going through all this, you're also dealing with this religious fear
Right. This
that,
dogma,
but,
yeah.
that now, they're in hell. I later had conversations with priests and, I think that's changed a little bit. And as we've evolved, and I will say evolved to understanding mental illness more, I will say that if you hear of anyone talking about harming themselves or about suicide, listen,
Mhm.
take it seriously. Anybody who's around me knows that if I hear anybody even in joking
Mhm.
about it, I will have a conversation with them. I have helped people get counseling appointments. We have gone to see people that my son called one night. One of my sons brought somebody to our house because they were afraid of what they were going to do. And I sat up all night with them, that sort of thing. Like you take it seriously. And I think, not to go into anything political or whatever, but the whole COVID changed the whole scene, and mental illness is thankfully being looked at in a more grace-filled light.
Yeah, I think with so much of it going on and growing that we have to be gentle, cautious, and just, I mean, like you experienced the suicide of your loved one. So now you're willing to give yourself to anybody. I mean, your son as well, just to help that person, giving them a place to crash. And I think the most important message I'll reiterate from you that I got out of that is listen,
Mm,
just to listen and hear them out, because you never know. I mean, one word could be spelt or said wrong, and that could just be enough to push
yes,
another individual. So listen.
and don't judge.
Yeah.
Because like where we started from at the beginning, you can see somebody from the outside, and
Oh, yeah.
social media has changed everything. What you see is the highlight reel of people's lives. That's not necessarily what's happening on the inside or behind closed doors. You see it all the time with movie stars or, influencers that on the outside, they look like they have everything. And oh my God, I want to be like them and blah, blah, blah. and they either OD on drugs
Yeah.
or alcohol
Mm.
or whatever,
Mhm.
so listen and don't judge.
Yeah. So let's go into I'm just taking a deep breath.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy.
It was heavy. That was a lot, and thank you for sharing. And I'm sure some of these stories are gonna hit somebody just right, you know. Very courageous for you to go and say this stuff. But moving a little bit forward, your children, I want to go into that a little, because now you're raising children without a dad here, and what happened next?
Yeah, so we continued on. I have my son. As I told someone recently, I was 26. I was a single parent. I was a mother, um, or a widow, and I
Mhm,
was broke.
mhm,
I'm not ashamed to say my dad helped me save my house.
mhm.
I literally was hired for $5 an hour 37 years ago. So
Yeah,
it's not like now
yeah.
you don't know where people came from. So I'm extremely grateful for people who supported me during that time. And I think that's another lesson that we can talk about, Justin, and is accepting help from others uh,
That's hard.
is one of the hardest things that you are ever going to have to do. And we'll have this conversation a couple times today
Mhm,
as we walk through things, but I had no choice. I have, a home in the country that needs lawn mowed. I have a baby. I have trying to keep a job, trying to relate to a family that's not talking to me, all the things that we're going through. But the bottom line is that I was graced with an amazing son. And we fast forward a little bit. I got remarried 2 years later, to a very kind man, and we were married for over 20 years, and we had 3 more sons.
mm,
So, I am incredibly blessed with 4 amazing sons, and life went on, just like you might picture, we had ball games, soccer games, football, all the things. Um, all 4 of my sons are Eagle Scouts, and I credit my ex-husband for that. He was their leader. He put in tons of time with that. It's a great honor to be able to say that. Not just one, but all 4 are Eagle Scouts. So, life again has twists and turns, and things happen. People grow apart. And when my oldest son was now in college, he came home and I cut his hair. And as I did as the whole time they were growing up.
You a barber too?
Yeah, I'm a barber too. Lots of things. And he is very passionate about baseball. He was into coaching and playing and all the stuff. Went to the state tournament when he was in high school. But I noticed this spot behind his ear. And I said, you really need to get that checked. And well, no, we're busy, got this, got that, college, blah, blah, blah. And a couple of months later, same thing. And I said, no, this is it. You need to get this checked.
Mhm,
And long story short, it turns out that fate was watching out for us because he was able to get in and he had it tested and they said that it was melanoma. And the family that he was living with, the gal had just started a new job. This is a true story. She had started a new job with a doctor, ear, nose, and throat from Cedar Falls. So he got in
mhm.
and they found out it was cancer. So I'll never forget. I get this call from my son, and it's the C word.
Mm. Your son told you that.
My son called, and he was alone when
Mhm,
he found out, and that's devastating because all of a sudden the world stops.
mhm,
So not only had we been through the whole stuff when he was a baby, here we are again, the world stopping, and as a mother of 4, full-time job, husband works out of town a lot, um, you have to prioritize and shuffle. And so we're like, okay, we got to find out what's going on here. So because he was at this doctor, that doctor had a connection to his friend, colleague, whatever, in Mayo and got us in. So I think we found out on Thursday he had cancer, and by Sunday we are up in Mayo.
Wow.
Not kidding. That quick. We got in and he had surgery the next week. And they cut him, from up behind his ear all the
Mhm.
way down. They checked the lymph nodes. They thought they had it. All right. So fast forward, we about a year and a half later, my son was home. We were getting ready to go to the Iowa football game, and he woke up and he has this huge lump on his neck. And we knew something was wrong.
Did you instantly think it was cancer again or lymph nodes or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was things in between, just, I think he had been checked, but they just do the outside skin check, not like a body scan, whatever, because they thought they had gotten it.
Mhm.
Um, so here we are. We go back to Mayo, and we got the worst news that any mother ever wants to hear. I'll never forget it. My ex-husband and I were sitting in the room with my son, and the doctor up there just said, it has spread. It's back, but it's spread.
Mm.
And it's not only in his lymph nodes, it's in his liver and it's in his spine. Um, and surgery is no longer an option. They're basically saying there's not a lot we can do.
Mhm.
And to hear that, I'm sitting here right now picturing, I can tell you what that room looked like.
Yeah.
And we walked out and I lost it.
Mhm.
And then we started to say, okay, where do we go from here? They said you could, because he was young and strong, they said you can take, what do you call it? Like, should have thought of this ahead of time. The drugs, testing drugs, um, either in Mayo or Iowa City. Well, Iowa City's closer.
Right.
So we went to like experimental drugs.
Yeah.
So we went to Iowa City and he met Dr. Mo. And again, I can picture it like it was yesterday. This is over 10 years ago. And he sat there and he showed us the pictures and he said, I tell it like it is. And your son has less than 10% chance to live.
Mhm.
And that's super tough.
Yeah.
And he said, you have this option and this option. He said, if you do both, like back to back, he might have 15% chance to live.
Mhm.
So as hard as that is to hear, he had melanoma, skin cancer. Um, a friend of ours, a friend of his, a year older than him, a young man, healthy young man, um, had been diagnosed with melanoma like a year before, a year and a half maybe. I remember I tailgated with him in Iowa City just weeks before, and he was dead in like 17 days.
Same thing.
Same thing. By the
Yeah.
time they figured out what he had, he was
Done.
gone.
Mhm.
My world was shattered.
Mhm.
And you have to picture that my son Dylan was like my best friend.
Mhm. Oh,
Not only had we gone through the loss of his father and just everything, we were super close.
yeah.
And I remember him telling me because I just kept crying. I was sure that he was going to die.
Mhm.
And he looked at me and he said, Mom, you're either with me or you're not.
Mm.
And he said, even if I have 1% chance to live, why can't I be that 1%? And that changed everything for me. I gave it to God and we're like, we're in this. I am with you. I will be by your side through everything.
Yeah. That 1%.
1%.
Do you hear that, everybody? 1%, you know? Yeah. It can happen.
It can happen.
Mm.
I still We have strong faith. Prayer warriors were
Mhm.
out, but he had a really tough journey ahead of us. He started a series of treatments, experimental. Sometimes they would do treatment A first and treatment B. They literally almost flip a coin, I believe. Sometimes it's the other way around. So he started out and he got the easy stuff first. And he was helping coach junior high wrestling at the time. It was like now.
Mhm.
And people were like, oh, well, he doesn't really look sick and he hasn't lost his hair, so he must be okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, not all chemo's like that, you
Yeah.
know? So then the second part was horrible,
More aggressive.
more aggressive.
Mhm.
And I'm not medical. I'm not going to name what he took because I can't remember. I'd have to look it up.
Mhm.
But we were at the University of Iowa and he was in the intensive care unit and we would go a week at a time. And the plan was that he got it every 8 hours. And the first day was not too bad, didn't start out, but once it got in his body, he starts reacting. And they had warned us, you go in fever, just drenched, like we were constantly cooling him down, throwing up,
Mhm.
and then he would be freezing.
Mhm.
So you take all that stuff away, and then you're putting blankets on, heated blankets, all this, and it was a cycle,
Just trying to regulate the body.
just trying to regulate and keep up. And
Mhm.
so the goal was that you tried to take as many as you could for that week every 8 hours, as much as he could take.
Yep.
So
Makes sense. I mean, you're trying to pack all the nasty dead stuff in, so you don't have to experience it again.
right,
I'd want the
and to
same
kill it,
thing.
and
Yeah,
to
I'd
kill
want
it.
yep, I'd want the same thing.
So the first week was, on a scale of 1 to 10, he might disagree, but it's probably about a 6 or 7 in horribleness.
Mhm.
Then he got to go home for a week, and then we're back for the second week. And then it started hitting the fan
Mhm.
because your body recognizes that it's coming again. So that easier day where your body didn't start reacting, you start reacting right away. When he got the first one, you're throwing up, you're freezing, you're hot,
Mhm.
and just over and over, and he couldn't eat. And so we went through that. And then, Dylan's very competitive and he had his goal set. And you try to take as many as you could. You get to Thursday and you're horrible. And the doctors described it like a bucket with a hole in it that you're trying to plug with your fingers, and you go until you don't have any fingers left to plug the holes.
Yep.
There's too much shit happening to stop it
Mhm.
and to keep him safe. So then he had, I think, a week or two off after that one, but then we're back and it's getting worse. And so by the third and the fourth time, they hadn't warned us that it could crash his um, heart.
Mhm.
And I'll never, ever, ever forget. I'm very short. And because I was short, I could fit in the window seat to sleep by him in the room. And one night I was awoken up by him, and there was like 6 doctors and nurses around the bed, and they were getting ready to jump him with the paddles. He
Mhm.
was crashing,
Mhm.
and we hadn't even known that this wasn't a
Yeah,
possibility.
this is new.
Yeah, this is new, and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible.
Mm.
Um, he just went through he went through hell.
Mhm.
So again, just kind of taking a step back, that people from the outside, you could come home in between. And again, just because somebody doesn't lose their hair
Mhm.
doesn't mean they're not going through hell,
Right. Or
you
they're
know?
wrestling, coaching wrestling.
Right. And
Doesn't
he
mean
was trying to find some semblance of normalcy
mhm.
in this messed up
Mhm.
world that we were living. And the other part of it, as a mom, from my point of view, was boom, what we talked about. we had to allow people to help us
Mhm.
because I still have 3 sons at home. The one another one was in college, but 3 other sons,
Mhm.
and, it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
They
you
need food, they need to get to school, who's going to their games, husband's gone, who's gonna be to the hospital, all these things, and people who start food chains or people who gave I will never ever forget. Mm, we got gift cards from people that blew us away,
yeah,
like, people you wouldn't even have suspected
just to
that
help with
cared.
groceries or
Right.
whatever, get some clothes,
Gas, food,
gas,
whatever.
yeah. Mhm.
So, if again, taking a step back just so I can recover here,
Yeah,
if people wanna know what they can do when you hear of families going through stuff like that, things like that really matter,
mhm,
really matter.
yeah. I like the
Asking
gift.
for help is really tough. Accepting help is tough. You wanna be able to do it by yourself. You wanna take like, you're used to controlling everything. I'm used to taking care of everything, and now I can't take care of my family. I can't even take care of my son, you know? It was tough.
Surrendering. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's difficult. I think all of us are, honestly. It's part of being human is accepting help from somers because our pride gets in the way and we again want to look good on the outside versus, the inside are no different than your story you're telling your son's coaching wrestling. He doesn't have cancer. How's he rolling around with these other kids? And then a week later he's literally dying. And so
Yeah,
you never know. We can't judge a book by its cover,
exactly.
and then just to accept what you can accept, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. So he made it through it, obviously, because
Yeah.
he's here. And off air, you were touching. Is this the one that was speaking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he, through this difficult treatment, it shrunk. It wasn't totally gone. And he later that fall, he wanted to go to Colorado. And everybody's like, well, people literally said, how can you let him go? He's 21 years old, 22.
Mhm,
First of all, he has a right to live his life how he wants to.
mhm,
And secondly, if something were to happen, who am I
mhm,
to stop him from living a dream or whatever? And he always said he felt close to his dad out there because Scott and I lived in Colorado and he lived in Denver
mm.
in the mountains. It was healthy, it was a lot of those things. Um, so, he did that. And after he got out there, he had another test. The doctors from Iowa City let him go out there, but he had to get another scan and there was still tumors. So then he did end up coming back eventually and he ended up getting the treatment. I think it's called Keytruda that President Jimmy Carter had melanoma in the brain
Mhm.
and he was an early user of this and it worked. And that's really what
Knocked it out, saved.
yes.
Yeah.
We say no evidence of cancer.
Yeah.
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 And it's now, I just got a thing the other day, a memory on Facebook came up. It's 11 years ago right now
Mhm.
when we were going through the beginning of the bad stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a
Mhm.
journey. Holy cow. I mean, to just be sitting here right now telling this story and reflecting on, and bringing up some of those emotions again, like how strong you are. Do you see
Mhm.
that? I mean, do you really see how strong you
I
are?
I hear that a lot, and
Mhm.
sometimes you don't feel strong. You don't know how strong you can be until you have to go through it.
Mhm.
And whether that's the journey through the suicide
Mhm.
and, you and I visited about this, earlier. I think one of the things that you can keep in mind for people who are listening to this that maybe are struggling going through difficult things, and it doesn't have to be a huge mountain of trauma like
Right,
this.
right. Just
It can be something smaller, but it's hard for you. is don't bring yourself back to today.
Mhm.
And even if it's one day at a time, maybe it's an hour at a time,
Mhm.
maybe it's a minute at a time on bad days, that you have to just say, I got through today.
Mhm.
And that's a win.
Mhm.
And when you start stacking up those little wins again, you get your strength back, you get your grit. You know, I think another lesson, um, some people may not agree with, but I believe in reflecting back through these things, I feel that sometimes as a mother, I did too much for my kids because we don't want them to hurt like we hurt
Mhm.
or have the challenges that we did. We want our kids to have better than what we had.
Evolving.
But yet, like I talked about earlier, where you map out the highs and lows of your life. This came to me one day in a vision or a visual picture of these valleys, and it's in those valleys and working your way back up that your character is created, and the grit and the strength that you may not know that you have. And when we as parents or friends or coworkers or whatever, we build little bridges in those valleys
Mm.
so that other people don't have to hurt like we did. We're taking away their journey, their story, their strength, their grit of the lessons that they're supposed to work through.
Mhm.
And again, this is just my opinion for whatever it's worth. But I believe that that's part of the issue of how we see people now, young kids particularly, who can't deal with life.
Mhm.
They can't deal with what seemingly looks like everyday events that don't go their way because parents have built bridges instead of letting them go through the valleys.
Mhm.
And that's really tough. I'm not an expert. I'm holding a mirror up. I'm not throwing darts because, you know, it's what you do. You're protecting your kids. You're being, you're doing what you thought you needed to do at the time. I get it. Like I said, I'm not throwing darts. That's just
Well,
holding up a mirror and reflecting on things that I could have done better.
yeah, I think everything you said there is beautiful. I mean, it was touching to me. I got a little teary there. But also too with that, like, I'd see reels on Facebook of, oh, the dads in the 70s and 80s and then the dads in the 90s for the millennials. And now look at the millennials being dads raising their children and just seeing how kids are like, how they were so masculine, how kids are just a lot more tender right now. But with that being said, I mean, and again, how you touched on it, we we went through that shit. We went through that muck where we don't want our kids to go through that muck. And to be honest, they're gonna find their own muck anyways.
Right.
Something's always gonna be there that they're going to need to learn, that they're gonna need to witness. It's all around us. And looking back at it, I mean, we didn't have computers, technology, all this, we could get away with stuff and hide from stuff. Where now, I mean, they have kids that track each other on their own phones now. Could you
Yeah.
imagine that? Your
Yeah.
friend tracking you where you're at? Like
I
there's
still
just
don't do that.
that's what I'm saying though, is they already have a lot more obstacles to go through. So if we could give them a little guidance, a little extra hand because the world is already it's becoming very difficult for young ones to navigate through, you
Well,
know?
it's a whole different world just everywhere, and that's
Mhm.
a whole probably a whole 'nother day
That's another podcast.
conversation about, all the crap that's out in the world that you do need to protect your kids against other
Mhm,
things.
mhm,
It's a whole it's not a simple life,
mhm.
sound like my dad,
Yeah,
but it's true.
yeah. We're evolving, we're growing into these new humans,
Mhm.
and our kids, when they I mean, your kids are probably around my age, But when my kids get to be a little bit older, they're going to be going through the same experiences. And, life might look a little different and
Right,
stuff,
for sure.
but it's the same similar experiences. You're going to have those valleys,
For
you're going
sure.
to have those mountains. We're going to have that straight road. We think we're invisible, and then yet it winds and
Right.
maybe turns into a level B road for a little bit. And it's
Hmm.
how, I mean, you keep saying grit, the character that it built and built who you are today so you can share these stories to help another being. And that being said, your kids and what you went through as a young teen or early in your 20s with the suicide, now, into your chapter of this life where you're currently at in this stage, what are you doing to keep moving on?
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's I'm looking for new ways to improve myself, I think mostly. And in doing that, helping others along the way is even better. I started hosting, well, I was having dinner with a girlfriend one night and I said, I really want to go on a retreat. And she's like, girl, you have this nice house, acreage. Why don't you just have one here?
Mhm.
And the wheels started turning. And so about a little over a year ago, I started hosting women. Well, it's been women, doesn't have to be retreats. And just connecting with people like you
Yeah.
and people that I met through our friendship
Mhm.
network. Um, and for me, I'm a perpetual learner. I am very grateful for that, in all different areas. I listen to podcasts all the time. I read books.
Mhm.
Um, I love to meet people. That way, I'm a lot like my dad. I'm a talker. My son is like my dad. I call him Little Laverne.
Mhm.
He can talk to anybody, and I think that's one of his greatest attributes. Um, but I just wanted to touch on one thing too, Justin, if I may,
Yeah.
is another word that we haven't mentioned today really is not being afraid to fail.
Mhm.
And that's a super tough thing. What we protect our kids from,
Mm.
again, from
Yeah.
failing.
Mm.
But I gave a talk one time on the keys to success, and one of them is being able to fail and
Mhm.
learn from your failures. I think that's huge.
It's best teacher.
It is the best teacher. It
Mhm.
humbles you.
Does.
Um, it makes you be creative, forces you to become creative, to do something differently.
Mhm.
In the story, I love sports analogies, but I used Kurt Warner as that, where
Oh,
he
yeah.
failed
Yeah.
and he missed his draft with the Packers and ended up back in Cedar Falls packing groceries
Groceries, yep.
until he was brought back around, and then he ended up in the Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
So grit,
Yeah.
but sometimes you have to fail.
Yeah.
And, whether that's you were talking about my children, we've had challenges. It's not a bed of roses. I know I didn't do things the way that they probably wanted me to as a
Mhm.
mom,
Mhm.
or as a parent, but I think and I hope and pray that when things are done from a good place, that you can allow grace to people.
Mhm.
Nothing was done out of malice or ill will or to hurt or, to make things worse for your kids.
You're giving it your best.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Because you have to put people back in perspective of where you were, who you were, what you went through, and all those things because everybody is different. Number
Mhm.
one, God made us that way. And, I'm a firm believer that God makes masterpieces
Mhm.
and we have to expand our view of artwork,
Yeah. For sure.
I
Really expand it.
I'm not supposed to look like you or act
Mhm.
like you or be like you, or my
Yeah.
kids aren't supposed to be just like me or just like their dad.
Mhm.
We're all meant to be different. We all bring different things to the table, and that's the beauty of life.
Mhm.
So I guess the other piece that we were kind of chatting about was, where do we go from here? And again, circling back to the ripples of positivity, whether that's at work, whether that's with friends, um, you know, I've had various challenges, and again, even recently, I thought 2025 was gonna be a great year. It did not start out that way, but you take a step back, you
Mhm.
pick up the pieces, and you give it another go, and
Mhm.
I'm gonna use my son, baseball analogy, if you're a baseball player and you bat 10 times and you get a hit 3 times, you're batting pretty good.
Mhm.
300 is pretty good.
That is good.
So it's all perspective too.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I mean, wow, what a wild story to tell. And, I want to touch a little bit more quickly on that afraiding to fail because I look at myself. We talked a little bit off air, and we both grew up on farms, and it wasn't the 9 to 5 job. It was you
Mm,
got the job done when it was done.
right.
And myself like that, and I see this world changing because of artificial intelligence, AI coming in. It's people are going to be losing jobs. So we have to become more creative, and we have to not be scared to fail if we have an idea that might sound a little crazy, maybe jump in and see if it's rewarding and what's the worst that could happen. It fails, you learn from it. You maybe pull a Kurt Warner and you start over again, and here we are, I don't winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's people out there, we have to recognize that we can't just keep doing the same thing over and over
Yeah.
again. We have to start being inventive, creating something new, using some old, learning
Right.
from those lessons, but, bringing something new to the table, um, bringing some of that grit, you know?
Well, it's funny because you say old. I don't like to use the O word.
Yeah,
I am one of I am the longest tenured at my place of work besides the owner, and I think it's important. I may not always be someone who I don't just sit and play on my computer and just get in and try things
yeah.
and mess with it. That's
Mhm,
just not me.
mhm,
I'm a visual person, but if you take the time to show me
mhm.
how to do something, I'm very adaptive. I can go with it. And then change is going to be there no matter what it is. I've been at my job 37 years,
That's
and there has been that's a whole nother story because
yeah, that's an honor. I mean, that's quite the accomplishment to be somewhere 37 years,
you know
you
it
know?
is.
Mhm,
It's not hasn't been easy.
mhm,
I'm a woman in a man's world somewhat,
mhm,
and um there's been a lot of trials, tribulations, being humbled,
mhm,
but I think that you have to be adaptive and learn. And I kid, we have multiple generations on my team. And another chat talk that I gave at another place was about communication through generations.
mhm.
That's a huge thing right now
Yeah,
because you can have the younger generation who just chat or text. They don't
mhm,
want to talk to you,
yeah.
and sometimes that's my kids, or maybe it's just because they don't wanna talk to me, I'm not sure. But,
Let's hope not.
I wanna talk,
Yeah,
I'm a talker.
yeah, yeah.
They don't get it. That's not the way it is, and so, you have to adapt. I have
Mhm,
Snapchat, I
mhm.
have, Facebook, I have Instagram, I have whatever. You have to see people. I tried to explain this to our IT guy the other day that, okay, I might be one of the longer employed, tenured
Not the
people,
O
not
word.
the O word.
Yeah.
But I said it's
Seasoned, you're
seasoned.
seasoned.
Not that I can't learn, I just learn differently
Yeah.
than you.
Mhm,
I'm not gonna be if you write something out and say, "Go do this," that's not me.
mhm.
If you sit down with 5 minutes and I get directions, I mean, I think I'm fairly intelligent,
Yeah,
I can do it, and
yeah.
then we go from there. But the point being is that you have to see people where they're at. And when you
100%.
have multiple generations,
Mhm,
I said, you have to make sure that you are connecting
mm.
to them in a way that they understand or will communicate back.
That's Perfectly said. I mean, honestly, and then when you really sit back and, well, if you're watching this or listening or whatever, but just to realize that how we are all so different and to drop down or rise up to somebody else's level. So I call it frequency channel,
Yeah.
switch into their channel so you can have a conversation, so you can learn, so you can change. Because if it's just Michelle's way or just Justin's
Mhm.
way, we're not going to get anywhere,
Right.
but if we
Check
can,
out. People check out.
yeah, if we can adapt and change and learn how to, get on each other's station, you can go a lot of places.
Yeah, totally
Mhm.
agree. Yeah.
Keep rising up.
There you go.
Mhm.
Become new human.
Yeah. Do you have anything
Humans.
new humans, that's where we're going right now. It's an interesting time we're living in, and I'm just so thankful you got to share your story today. I know how difficult that was for you. Um, but looking back at it, I mean, I think wrapping up here, you went through those tough times, went through those valleys, made some bridges, and look at where you're at now. You had faith, you had troubles, and you were still rising up from all those troubles, becoming stronger, but yet keeping your roots,
Yeah.
keeping your job consistent, going up through ranks, whatever you had to do there, while still being a single mother, going through divorce, going through everything you went through. Where do you see yourself in 10 years now?
Oh, wow, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Actually, that was one of the questions from my retreat
Yeah.
not very long ago.
Uh-huh.
Well, I love the beach. I will not be working full time. I want to spend time with my grandkids. I have two, one that's due in a couple weeks. I love to travel.
Mhm,
But if I were able to still have retreats similar to what I'm doing,
mhm.
I would be thrilled with that. Yeah.
Are they day retreat or a weekend or
Just an afternoon long
afternoon?
we've run over every time, so I always book too much, but everybody enjoys it, so
Yeah.
and the camaraderie, people have met that didn't know each other,
Mhm,
and that's key to me too. I like meeting new people. I think it brings zest to your life and, to do the same thing, same people all the time, that's just not who I am.
mhm,
I'm the weird person who I literally met a waitress down in Nashville probably 8 years ago, and we're still friends. I met a lady at the pool in Phoenix,
mhm.
a couple years ago, just totally random,
Yeah.
and we're still friends. We might travel together.
Mhm.
God
Yeah.
puts people this is another thing that I'm a huge believer in, is that God puts people in your life for a reason.
Mhm,
We don't always know the reason, and sometimes, the journey can be tough, but there's a reason in the end.
mhm,
We don't know when we'll find out what that can be. Sometimes it comes through that you get to see.
mhm,
And sometimes, well, how's it go? You're either the lesson or you're the blessing
mhm.
to
Yeah,
somebody else.
for
And I
sure.
think, I will share if I
Yeah.
may. It's my birthday month,
Mhm.
and I think you've seen some of
Oh,
them,
yeah.
but, in November I started this a couple years ago, and I really love it. Each day in November, I am posting on Facebook something that I'm grateful for. I think if you have gratitude in your life, you can't be grateful and angry or resentful or whatever at the same time.
Mhm,
I start my morning, my day with meditation. I end it with meditation, prayer,
mhm,
both. But each day I am giving something that I'm grateful for. And I have had more people private message me back about how that impacts them to think outside the box, because I try not to do just the most obvious things.
yeah.
Um, to make you think, "Oh my god, yeah, well, I have that too," or, "Oh, yeah, well, my day sucked, but maybe, my life really isn't that bad
Mhm,
when you compare to somebody else." So, hopefully that's another, thing that we can carry forward from today, is that don't give up,
mhm.
If you're struggling, reach out to someone or
Mhm.
a group that can help you.
Mhm.
Um, there are people who care. There are real people. There's a lot of fakes and there's a
Yeah.
lot of scams. I
Yeah.
deal with that.
To be mindful.
Be mindful. That's a great
Yeah. Yeah.
be mindful. But don't be afraid to care about people and do the little things and put your phone down for 2 seconds. I'm bad at this, I know.
We all
Um,
are, but
Waiting
how
in line.
important that
Yeah.
is. I mean, we do it even with we got a 2-year-old,
Mm.
so he's always wanting to play, and sometimes it's like you get a text, you wanna look at it, but then he notices that, and you can tell he's like, "Dude, dad, can I just have your attention right now?"
My dog
Yeah.
will knock
Y
the phone out
yeah.
of my
They
hand
but they just
if I'm on my phone too
e
much at night.
exactly.
How bad is that?
They wanna be seen, you know, and
Yes,
when you do that and you recognize that and you put it down and you spend that it's the moment is so much more cherishable.
exactly.
They see it, you're having fun now. So, yeah, put the phone down if we can. We know it's
It's
hard.
hard.
Yeah, but if you can be more present with
Yes.
each other and really listen with each other, I think, you know, I think we're gonna help a lot of people just with those couple words, the
Yeah.
listening, you
Don't
know?
judge,
Yeah,
we talked about.
yeah, and just being there for each other.
Amen.
Mhm. Yeah. So
Mm.
if anybody wants to reach out to you, Michelle, where Facebook or
Yeah, or probably reach out to Justin and we
yeah,
can connect that
and
way.
I can navigate them to
Yeah.
you and she does. I mean, today you have quite the story and I can see with the people reaching out to you on Messenger that some of us just need, a real raw story, and not just a fake story or something that looks good on
Right.
paper or on
Or
TV.
Facebook.
Yeah, on Facebook, but a real story to I don't know, bring us down to realize we're all just human doing the best we can do.
I actually have a company name. I had a logo. I've got everything. I just need to do it.
Yeah.
And it's called Dreamspire.
Dreamspire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to live out the dream, encourage people to dream and inspire them.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing a business card or
There you
something up
go.
on the web
Need to
about
get it
that.
done.
Yeah. Well, do you have any final words or anything you'd like to say before we
No,
wrap
I
up
mean, I
here?
just want to thank you for the opportunity. I think that there are just so many different things that we could talk about and avenues or things we didn't get
I
to, but
think we're going to be doing this again.
I would love it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we could have some more, I think, motivational topics. And you're a talker. I'm a talker. I really tried straining myself today because
You did well. I didn't give you time to talk, but
no, this was beautiful. And I'm just so glad you got to do this today. And I know we'll see each other again. And with that being said, if anybody out there is needing to reach out, I have all my stuff in the show notes of how to get a hold of me. New Human Holistic Studio, if you want to come out here and just we'll listen to you talk. But again, reach out and listen, and we're here for you. So,
amen.
all right. Well,
Thank you
thank you,
very much,
Michelle.
Justin.
Yes,
It was great.
it was
Appreciate it.
great. Thank you. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning into today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And remember, hit the like and subscribe button. And if you have any questions or anything, don't hesitate, reach out to us.